Hello and welcome to the THC show. I'm Neil Magnuson, your host, and this is the show where we talk about truth, hope, and change. Three things that are very important in today's world. On the show today, 8 out of 10 Glenn from CannaMatch.ca will join me as always for the 420 session. Jerry Martin is having car issues, but he's hoping that he can get that dealt with in time to make it at some point during the show, so we can probably update you on his situation as well. I'm not a doctor, I'm not a scientist, I don't have a degree. I'm just an ordinary person that lived in the mainstream, fixed houses and buildings for a living for most of my life until I had to decide to try to do something about what I saw as a super injustice in our world, and that is that our public servants don't behave like it, and we're not treated as free people as we should be. And the biggest and most glaring example of that is the attempt to prohibit cannabis. And so I quit my job quite a while ago to try to do something about that, and I've been trying to do something about that ever since. But, I don't have a degree. Like I say, I'm not a scientist or a doctor or anything like that. But I think I have a reasonable mind and a good analytical mind, and I think that I've learned a lot of life lessons along the way, and I've learned to recognize bullshit when I see it. And I'm all about right and wrong in this world, and wanting things to be right, especially where people are being harmed. And with respect to the attempt to prohibit cannabis, which has gone on for a better part of a century or more, that a lot of people are being harmed by that. And the prohibition itself turns out to be a very harmful thing in our society. There's a lot of people that are trying to live their lives with criminal records. There's a lot of lives who've been ruined because of incarceration and property seizure and loss of jobs, and the stigma of cannabis has hurt a lot. And now we have a situation where there's, and it's been here for a while, it's been for a long time, that there's been harms associated with the use of hard drugs that are very significant. And now we have an overdose crisis where people are dying. And there's a lot of other health issues with respect to using opioids and these other dangerous street drugs as well. But of course, the risk of dying is the biggest one. So there's been a movement that's been going on for quite a long time, for more than 20 years, especially here in Vancouver. A lot of work being done on what we call the harm reduction side of things. And harm reduction is where, instead of trying to punish people for using drugs, you try to help them if they're having problems with the use of those drugs. It's quite an interesting concept. For about 100 years, they've been using the let's punish people for using drugs and then they'll stop using drugs model. And of course, that's extremely expensive. It's been terribly ineffective. And in fact, it has caused a lot more harm to a lot more people than the use of those substances ever could, and especially with the case of cannabis, but with these other drugs as well. And so now we have this situation for the last 5 years where the drug supply that people are accessing who can't get it through a legal supply through their doctors for a variety of different reasons, they're dying, and the numbers are just horrific. And the amount of people overdosing that don't die is also horrific, and there's a lot of health repercussions that comes from that. So finally, our governments, due to the work of a lot of activists over the last 20 years or so, have decided that maybe harm reduction isn't all that bad a thing after all, and maybe it's not such a criminal issue, maybe it's more of a health issue, and maybe we should be trying to help these people. And so harm reduction is something that is considered. And just recently, just the other day, the BC health officials came up with a statement about harm reduction because, there's been a lot of movement as far as we're concerned with respect to using cannabis as a harm reduction tool. And when the government's asked about cannabis as a harm reduction tool, their response was that although there's some promising early evidence, more work is required, and that at this point their primary focus is on prescribed opioid alternatives, which enrich pharmaceutical companies, do nothing to help people get off of the opioids that they would rather not be on. And the truth is that there is a huge amount of clear and compelling evidence that cannabis is a harm reduction tool. I think it can all be summed up in two words with respect to whether or not cannabis is a harm reduction tool, and that would be or those would be endocannabinoid system. We all have an endocannabinoid system. Cannabis is a supplement to that system within our human bodies that is there as the overriding system for all the other systems in the human body. The endocannabinoid system is charged with maintaining homeostasis and balance amongst the other human systems, the cardiovascular system, the digestive system, the endocrine system, the excretory system, the immune system, the nervous system, the musculoskeletal system, and the reproductive systems. Cannabis is an analgesic for dealing with pain. It's an anti-inflammatory. It's a vasodilator. It's neuroprotective. It's an anti-nausant. It stimulates appetite. It's a violence suppressor. It's all of these things that cannabis does for a human being. And all of that, I'm sure, could be called harm reduction. If you're involved in a lifestyle where you're not healthy and you're at risk of dying, and you're doing this because you're not sleeping properly, you've got pain going on, you're depressed, you suffer from anxiety, a whole host of different human maladies that cannabis is effective in helping, and people are using these other drugs because of. So for our public servants to be standing up there and saying that there's not enough, the early evidence is promising, but at this point we're just going to give all of our taxpayer dollars to the pharmaceutical companies to keep these people that are on opioids and other street drugs. We'll transition them onto other opioids that we will supply for them, of course a safe supply, and we'll all pay for it with taxpayer dollars, and really nobody will be any the better off, because these people will still be addicted to drugs and they will still be wanting to get off drugs. And it is a serious dereliction of duty with what's going on with our public servants. And that's putting it mildly. What we're really dealing with here is a serious crime against us as people and our society in general. It's the motive for this crime. I mean, you always look for the motive in a crime. The motive is money. The motive is power and money and personal protection and security for public servants that are kowtowing to the wishes of big corporate money that do not want to allow cannabis into the marketplace as an alternative for all the things that it could be, because they can't control it. They've got patents on other things. They want an unhealthy population that are needing to use their pharmaceutical alternatives, and on that story goes. This has been one of the worst chapters in human history as I see it. It's just my opinion. I'm no expert, like I told you. But as I look at things, and as I've, for the last 20 years or so, been able to glimpse into the lives of people who's had their lives torn apart by these government policies, when I've had to look at the statistics of how many people are incarcerated, are fined, are fired, etc., etc., the toll is incalculable. The amount of damage that has been done is impossible to estimate, but it is huge, and it continues to this day. Cannabis is a plant that has been found throughout history to have a huge amount of value in so many different ways, as an industrial product, as a medicine, as a food, as a textile, etc., etc. And yet, because of its utility, because of how valuable it is, forces that be have conspired against it, to demonize it, to lie about it, and to try to prohibit it, to try to annihilate it. I mean, that was the real intention of cannabis prohibition in the first place, was to try to annihilate it. And all of that just to serve the interests of some greedy, financially elite human beings who have no ethics with respect to the damage that they've done in replacing cannabis as medicine with toxic pharmaceutical synthetics, with forcing us to drive vehicles consuming fossil fuel where we could have been using hemp ethanol and other natural or non-polluting alternatives. The greed of these people has no bounds, and the depths to which they will fall in supporting that greed has taken a huge toll on humanity. And these are the people that we've been fighting against for millennia, and we're still at it today. And it is so evident with respect to the prohibition of cannabis that that we are under the thumb of these people, because the evidence is clear. There is no need for more research or more work to be done to find out if our public servants should allow cannabis to be accessed reasonably by human beings. There's no need for any more research into that, because all of the evidence states that not only is cannabis non-lethal, not harmful, not addictive, not causing problems in our society or in people's lives, but it is a complete opposite of that. It is one of the most beneficial things a person can do in their own individual life in so many ways, be it using it as a topical for issues you may have with your body's health, or using it as an edible for all the things that you might want to use an edible for, and medical patients find so much relief with the edibles. Using CBD or other cannabinoids, to the CBN to help you sleep, or the CBD to help with anxiety and pain, on and on and on it goes. All of this evidence coming in for all this time since I quit my job to try to bring this forward to the public, to get this issue solved, constantly, day after day after day. It gets more and more and more clear. The evidence all on this side, none on this side. Never was there a reason to justify using the criminal law against free human beings to prevent them from accessing, using, growing, or selling this plant. No evidence whatsoever that that was ever the right thing to do. It didn't stop any problems in our society to do that. All it did was cause a whole bunch of trouble for people while making money for these corporate elite bastards. And millions of people have suffered as a result. Our economy has suffered as a result, and it continues on to this day. So this is my rant at this point. You know, I've been fighting this for so long. When I first read Jack Herer's book, 2004, I got to read it. Couldn't believe what I read. I didn't know all that stuff. I'd been actually working for the pot rallies for a few years leading up to that, and I just never understood most of that stuff. All I really knew, but the reason I was going to the pot protests and 420 and Cannabis Day and the marches was because I knew right from wrong. And I knew that I was not a criminal, because I decided that I wanted to use cannabis for making me feel good, for helping me connect with nature, for all the things it was doing for me. I knew I was not a criminal, and I knew it was wrong to be called a criminal, and I didn't like being called a criminal. And so when I first read Jack Herer's book back then in 2004, that really educated me about so much more to do with this amazing plant and all the uses for it, the utility of it, why it's so valuable, I thought, oh man, this is clear. This is true. This is obvious. This you know, I've done enough due diligence now to be able to understand that this is telling the truth here. This plant should never have been prohibited. This plant should be widely encouraged. Its use should be supplemented. It should be given to people that are on disability. It would help us in so many ways. And it's so clear that, you know, I know there's a process involved in getting these things straightened out, but it shouldn't take more than 10 years. That's what I said in 2004. I was reminded at that time, or not reminded, but informed at that time that when Jack wrote his book, some 30 years before that he also thought that it should be no more than 10 years before the truth gets out and things get settled and straightened out. So the fact that it's taken so long, like we're like about 50 years now, 45, but I'm not doing the math. But it's a ridiculously long time. And by this time, like I say, with all the evidence that's out there, I remember back in 2005 where during a debate with Norm Stamper and Daryl Pleckus about cannabis legalization, the whole medical side of cannabis was brought up because it was in its infancy at the time, but it was becoming pretty clear that cannabis had some serious medical value. And I remember Daryl Pleckus saying that, you know, we should just wait because, you know, the jury's not in yet, and maybe it doesn't have medical value, maybe it's not true. But he did concede that if it was true, that they should really be revisiting the whole idea of using the criminal law against people that would want to use it and access it. Well, that was a long time ago now, and it was a generation ago, it was a millennia ago when you look at what's happened since then with how evident it is that cannabis is a very effective medicine for so many things. And in fact, we've even achieved, what our government said or promised us would be legalization, although that's not what we got. But, we've come this far, and the evidence is so clear now that it is becoming really, really ridiculous that we continue to allow our public servants to waste our tax dollars and our law enforcement resources to be running around and checking on how many cannabis plants people have growing in their house, or whether you have too many little bags of cannabis here that more than you're allowed to have, and now we're going to run you through our court system and we're going to spend all this money going after you. And in many cases they're spending tens of thousands of dollars to recover a small fine from people who can't afford it and don't deserve to be paying it. But the math on it is just outrageous. They don't seem to understand. They're spending tens of thousands of dollars to get us taxpayers $1 back. Like, look who's benefiting from that. It's certainly not us taxpayers. It's the people working in the courts. It's the people that are getting paid the money all the way through the whole system of cops breaking into people's homes and finding out how many plants you got, or wasting your time on the side of the road and now having to arrest you and going and billing time for booking you, and on it flipping goes here. They're wasting our money. They're getting us nothing in return, and it's all to protect the interests of these corporate bastards. 419, Saved by the Bell. Roll them, you got a minute and we'll smoke them. So it's long overdue that we recognize this huge injustice going on that is costing us so much money and causing so much havoc and problems in our world, and now even preventing life-saving work that we're trying to do by allowing people to get easy access to cannabis, especially high-dose edibles, to get off the opioids and solve these issues. And we're getting nothing but resistance from our government. So by now, long time ago, the evidence would have already dictated that they should have stopped and suspended prohibition immediately, and no penalties for pot, and now move into a system where pot is supplemented and people are encouraged to use it. And instead of that, all this time in, because we don't have that, now what we've managed to do is expose just how corrupt our government is, and just how bad things are, and how important it is for us to work for change and to solve these issues. But that's enough of that for now. We'll get back into the whole issue of cannabis as a harm reduction tool and what we're doing with it a little later on. For now, it's 420. I'm always joined by 8 out of 10 Glenn. How you doing, sir?
How you doing there, sir?
Got your CannaMatch shirt on there?
I do. And I brought my Puffco Pete today.
That's good. I don't mind helping you advertise CannaMatch.
Thank you very much.
There's no financial remuneration here.
No.
I don't pay Glenn. He doesn't pay me. I like the guy. Lots of people like the guy.
Sir.
He's always trying to help people. He comments on everybody who's got a problem. I see people's posts on Facebook lots of time. They got a problem. I just don't know what to say.
Yeah.
I try to write something. I erase it. I don't know what to say. But you always find something to say.
Yeah.
You somehow figure out some little thing to say that brightens a person's day, or helps them with their issue.
Possibly could be the many years I was hitchhiking Canada, meeting so many people, hearing so many stories and stuff like that. Hearing.
Yeah, you're just really good at reaching out and helping people in a little ways.
Thank
and
you, Toastmasters.
I appreciate that.
Toastmasters did that for me.
And I appreciate you coming on the show.
Oh, thank you, sir.
And I appreciate the thing that you put together here, this CannaMatch.ca, because I think there's not enough love in the world,
Nope.
and I think love is the answer to everything. And
flower power.
And people should be able to get together and share the love.
Sure.
And cannabis helps a lot with that as well.
Yep.
As I mentioned before, it's a violence suppressor. So, it helps people chill. And putting people and cannabis together, and people who like cannabis that can find each other, and that's a wonderful service.
So do you think the term flower power came from this flower, or just the flower that, during the 60s was a flower? Because it's kind of got power to it, right? It's healthy
Well,
for
flower
you.
power was all about the hippies.
What
and,
about the hippies? Yeah, but
I
we
don't
were
have
smoking flower then.
I don't have. I mean, I have to ask the great Google, and maybe
Yeah, we have
maybe,
that. Yeah, where did
maybe
the
she
term,
wouldn't even know either. But
where did the term flower power come from? Yeah.
it was associated with the hippie movement.
Yes, I know that because I used to
Yeah.
have a big button that said flower power when
Yeah.
I went to camp and when I was like 5 years old, so
But
1970.
it's a good question. Was that based on the power of this
Of
flower?
cannabis, because we were smoking cannabis back then too, right? And we were promoting it, and it was the big part of it.
I would suspect it
Peace
did.
and pot,
You
right?
know, whoever did that marketing for them,
Yeah,
came up with that, I don't know.
It just occurred to me when you said flower. I was just like, where did that term flower power come from?
I have images of hippie girls with non-cannabis flowers.
Yes.
In different protests.
Yeah, and the button was a
and
real-
presenting to people, and,
Yeah.
and the buttons had non-cannabis flower
Yeah, so
on
there
there.
probably was a flower, but it's just a question.
I don't know.
I'm going to smoke some of this butter.
It absolutely should have been, in reference to the cannabis powers flower. or
Yes,
cannabis
that's what I
flowers
was.
power.
Yeah, that's what I'm thinking, right? Because it was peaceful then. We were beginning to smoke it then and use and find out the qualities and the goodness
As,
of the
as
stuff.
Greg Williams would say, peace and pot.
That's what I'm saying. Yeah,
I mean, pot was certainly all about the hippies. It was all about,
yeah.
all about smoking weed and dropping acid.
And dropping acid. Yeah,
and-
I was about to say LSD.
and
Yeah,
questioning the
magic
system.
mushrooms.
Yeah.
In the States, they were doing some peyote and stuff like those, the buds and stuff like that. Peyote buds, I remember
So
that.
it's only been about 60 years.
only about 60 years.
and it turns out the hippies were right.
The chat is saying that
Yes,
the
it came from Berkeley, California, it says.
the chat is saying that, it was from an essay 1965. Thank you, James Bishop, if that's correct.
Yeah, thank you, James. There
Yeah,
you go. He
appreciate
may
that.
have Googled it for us.
That's right. Somebody probably did. He probably did.
Yeah.
So
Thank you very much, James.
and so he's saying that it was representative of cannabis. That's what they were.
All flowers.
All
flowers.
All
but-
flowers. All flowers. Okay. So,
We don't want to discriminate.
no.
Today's world, you can't be
be
discriminating.
politically
That's right.
incorrect.
It's probably politically incorrect to discriminate.
Don't
Okay,
leave any
flowers.
flower behind.
Don't leave any
All
flower.
flowers matter.
Even Robin Hood flower.
Oh man, the lowliest of flower
yeah.
really, really, really matters.
Yeah.
The lowliest of flower is plankton. I would suggest.
You think so?
I think probably that it's one of the most simple flower type organisms that
Yeah.
exists. And when you look at the effect of plankton on this planet, it is incredible.
Oh, yes.
Oh my goodness. It's responsible for over half of the oxygen that we breathe.
Yeah.
We wouldn't be
I
here
was about to
without
ask you
it.
that 'cause I saw a show about
It
that.
is the start of a food chain
Yeah.
that feeds billions and billions of organisms on the planet.
And
It's
isn't
amazing.
there a part of the ocean where the plankton can light it up at a certain
Yeah.
times? Yes,
Right,
right?
there's something going on
'Cause
there.
I
Why
saw
they
that
light it
show.
up?
That's where it's coming from. The plankton actually get together in millions, and it lights up the water, and you can walk through it and stuff like that.
And herring as well.
yeah,
Herring, they don't have sex,
Oh.
which is really too bad, because I think
Well, how do we
sex
get more
is
herring?
fun. Well, what they do is that the females,
Yeah.
they go down and hit the bottom of the whatever they are, the
Yeah.
ocean,
yeah.
and then they lay their eggs,
And then the guys-
and then the males come in behind and they just flood the area with clouds of sperm.
Okay.
And that herring sperm, there's so much of it. I mean,
Yeah.
it lines the coastline, and it's phosphorescent. It
Oh,
does
really?
light up,
Oh, wow.
and you can see it from the sky. It's
Oh, wow.
just this big white, bright band
Yeah.
of actually sperm.
Wow. Well, my sperm don't glow. What the fuck's going on?
I've
with
been
that?
watching some of these David Attenborough specials and Professor Cox there, and boy, oh boy, we live in an amazing
Oh,
universe. don't we?
this planet is full of stuff that we wouldn't even half know about, I think.
I often like to think, like, what would it be if I was an alien
Yeah.
looking for life in the universe?
Yeah.
And you're looking for planets that have life, and there's
Yeah.
probably lots of them.
Well-
But they come to this one.
Yeah.
I mean, holy smokes!
Well, when you look at the Milky Way, it's all white, right? But there is a blue dot in the middle. So if you're that alien and you're flying around looking for a place to go, we're going to go to all the white. We're going to go to that one.
you think
blue
we're
dot.
the one blue dot?
We are the one
Oh,
blue
we're
dot.
not
I don't
the
think
one
so.
blue dot.
Yes,
No,
we
no,
are.
no,
Come
no.
on, yes.
There is billions and billions of planets
Yeah, but they're not as
in the Milky Way galaxy. And there's all kinds of different representations. I'm sure there's lots of other water worlds that look like ours.
You think so?
Oh, yeah.
Well, I know
We
there's
don't
a
see them
gray
very
one
well, right?
for
We can't see
New
them.
Neptune. I know, but I don't know.
In our solar system, we've sent a probe out there, probes
Yeah.
out, and so we've had a good look at what's here.
Voyager.
But the other ones, we're imagining what they look like. We can tell by their chemical composition what they're made of, and lots of things about them. But actual pictures of what they will look like, we have to wait till we kind of get there.
Yeah.
We're getting good at finding them, but there's literally billions and billions and billions of
Oh,
them
of course,
within our.
yes. Yeah.
It's
And
incredible.
galaxies, yeah. To think that we're the only ones would be very ignorant.
I'll tell you, we're the only ones like us.
Okay.
We're the only ones like us. There's probably a lot of other life out there, probably a huge amount of life out there.
I sort
in
of
the universe.
believe that Battlestar Galactica theory, that there was another planet of human people out there.
Human people?
Yeah.
Well,
And
this is the big thing that they're looking for right
Yes,
now, right? They're
right.
looking for life too.
Yeah.
Because we got life one here.
Yeah.
Everything here on this planet is connected. We all share the same DNA.
Yeah.
All the life.
Yeah.
We're life one on this planet. All the life that's here originated here, other than the fact it probably came, from asteroids or eventually the building blocks or
Apparently
whatever.
people
More
with
than
blue
that.
eyes came from all one person.
I did know that. Yeah.
Yes.
But
Yeah.
what they're looking for, what they're hoping to find on some other moon or planet or Mars or wherever, is organic life
Yeah.
that's not based on our DNA.
Yes.
And that'll be life too.
That'll be life too.
So life, and that would be huge to
Yeah.
find that.
Yeah.
So
One day.
the implications are equally huge on both sides.
Oh yes.
Either if we are one of billions of life forms and planets with life that originated there, that evolved, there's no other humans like us,
Yeah, yeah.
guaranteed 100%. There may be bipedal,
Maybe.
organisms that
Yeah.
have the same, right and left and arms or whatever, but no. The life on this planet is unique to this planet. It's how life grows. There'll be lots of other examples of how life grows, but the life on this planet is unique. And that's what I mean. If you're some alien and you're out there looking for life and you're able to travel the distance, and the distance is so far, maybe in 100 years we'll know more about how to traverse the distance, but at this point it doesn't look like that's really much of a possibility, because if it was, we would have more visitors here than what maybe we do. Maybe we have visitors. I don't really know. But if there is no life too that we can discover on all of these other things, which I doubt very much, but if that was the case, if life was so unique to this planet and this solar system and this obscure end of this galaxy of this universe, that would be amazingly huge implication. But on the other side, if there's life everywhere,
There's so many different lives in this planet because
On this planet.
a bug's life. A bug doesn't see a car, have a job, have a house. A snake will have a different vision of the world. So it's almost like different worlds.
there's a trillion ways to be.
Sterling wants somebody to throw a nug at me.
Throw a nug at you.
Yeah, Sterling goes. He says, "Yeah, there you go."
No, I don't think that's what he means. I think he wants us to throw it at him.
It says, "Someone throw a nugget of weed at Glenn for me and."
Oh, okay. He didn't mean that. That was not drug abuse, by the way.
No.
The nug that I
It's in
threw,
the bag. It's in the bag.
is protected in this plastic sheet there. So we try not to abuse drugs.
This one wasn't though.
I didn't throw that.
No, I know.
Okay, it hit the
Producer.
floor.
Producer.
A little bit of drug abuse.
Yeah. Oh man.
Okay.
He's laughing his ass off. Yeah. So that was a pretty spaced out conversation, eh?
As I get old, I have more time and
We
interest
can
in
talk
some
about
of
the
these
ocean.
other things.
The ocean is a different life too. It's got a great disguise.
The ocean is like, this is a living planet.
I know.
It's incredible. One of the things I was watching was how the salmon, they start out way off in the ocean.
Yeah.
Because that's where they end up after they're born.
Yeah.
But they're born here in the river systems of
Yeah.
British Columbia.
Yeah.
They then have this instinctual, undeniable desire to get back to where they were born.
Mm-hmm.
So they make that super long trek through the ocean, back to the shores of British Columbia, back to the river outlets of the river that they were born in. And they can tell, because of the smell of the water molecules as they're passing them,
Where
that
they
are
are.
coming from where they want to be.
Wow.
They can identify with the smell where they were born.
It's amazing.
And they get to the river I forget, Delta, I guess.
Delta,
yeah.
Yeah.
And then only the strong are surviving, and
Yeah.
that's the trick to life
Yeah.
on this planet,
And they
is
go
the strong
against the water
survive.
too, right?
They got to go up the waterfall.
Yeah.
They got to jump. One salmon can jump. Hey, how you doing, buddy? Good to see you. Talk about being able to jump. But a salmon, the ones that make it, they can jump the same equivalent of a human being jumping a 4-story house.
Yeah.
To get up into
We've
those
seen
waterfalls.
it, like in shots of shows and stuff like
Oh,
that.
it's
I know.
incredible. And some of them are lucky because they were born relatively close to the river delta,
Yeah.
but many of them are not. Millions of them are not.
Yeah.
Millions of them have to traverse through the river systems of British Columbia up to 2,000 miles
Yeah.
away from the ocean.
And sometimes the water's just that deep. You
Oh,
can
yeah,
see
lots
the
of
top
them drown.
Swimming across on the ground and everything,
Yeah,
right?
lots of them drown in air because there's not enough water. Lots of them are killed by bears.
Yeah.
Lots of them are killed by birds.
We're having problems in the Fraser Valley with people driving through their beds now and stuff like that. There are those big trucks, the 4x4s are up there.
Are disrupting the...
Yeah, they're going to send in fisheries enforcement out there now because people are just running through those beds. And they're saying there's fish that lay eggs there. And stuff
Oh
like
man,
that.
the importance of the salmon run is so incredible to the entire ecosystem of British Columbia.
Yeah.
I mean, the bears are hibernating. They come out of hibernation. They're going down to the water. They're waiting for the salmon.
Yeah.
And
If there's
so
no salmon.
well, yeah. If there's no salmon, then the bears will die. But the amount of life forms that feed off of that salmon run coming back is just incredible.
Even the ones that die.
And if you look at it, it looks like the veins on a leg that's got all the veins showing, it looks like just the arteries in a system. When you look overhead at the mountains and the rivers throughout British Columbia, and all of them are now, the salmon are coming back, the salmon are being consumed, the salmon are dying, all the life forms, or not all, but many of the life forms, the birds and the bears and so many others, they're consuming the salmon and then going back out into the woods.
Yeah.
They're, bears shit in the woods.
Yeah.
I heard that.
Yeah.
And that, they think that over 80% of the nitrogen that's in the trees in the forests of British Columbia comes from the ocean brought by the salmon.
Yeah.
And so fish fertilizing, obviously, and then these huge trees would be nowhere near as huge without that fish fertilizer. And so, so much of the
Well, we
ecosystem
even know
of British
that with
Columbia.
cannabis. Cannabis really likes fish water. If you can
course.
water your plants with your fish water, like I got a 40-gallon tank, so I can take some water out there and put it in my plants. Now, they really like it.
Aquaponics is the best way to grow.
Sam Malachi used to use fish water all the
Aquaponics.
time. Yes, all the time. That man really knew what he was doing there, right?
Yeah, it's
You'd
a
walk
wonderful
into
way to
his
grow.
building and you just smell the water,
Yeah.
right? You knew, right? So yeah, that's full of stuff.
Yep, I think it's the future, aquaponics,
Yeah.
for growing. It's just the most ecologically fair way to do things, the right way to
And
do
you
things.
get two benefits because you can have a fish tank with some fish in it to provide your water for you.
You
right?
can-
So you get to look
You
at
can
the-
grow and sell fish.
Yeah, you grow,
grow and sell fish.
at the same time. Yeah,
Yep, it's a wonderful way to grow.
yeah. It's a awesome. Well, like I said, I got
Takes a little more to set up, and it's
Yeah,
it's
I
not
got
as
40
easy
gallon.
as...
We got two fish in there, but we've had them for 4 years now.
Really?
They'll live 10 years. Our fish, they're the pretty big ones. They're parrot cichlids. Some people call them kissing fish, but they're actually fighting because they're cichlids. So they got these little parrot beaks, and they go like this to each other, right? You have to buy two because if there's not one to fight the other one, they just die.
They live to fight.
Yeah, they do. Yeah, well, basically they're a cichlid. Yes. Yeah,
A cichlid.
a cichlid. Yep. There's piranhas or
This, the THC Nature Show is
There you go, yeah.
brought to you by cannabis.
space, cannabis, and fish.
That's why I love the 420 session. That's why I included it.
Thank you, Mike.
It's an example. I mean, I do this on the show because I want to provide an example to people of the effects of cannabis.
Yep.
And that's why you have a 420 session. And I'm sure you can see that, well, mind you, I was smoking before I started the 420 session, so maybe you can't see. But, the effects of cannabis are really wonderful. They allow you to have good, lively, animated conversations.
Yeah, we all do this. We sit around, smoke, and we talk about
Exactly.
whatever our brains. It may be freaky, it might be spaced out, but we have a good time.
And that's what your teenagers are doing if they're sitting around smoking weed after school. That's what we did, is we sat around and we made jokes, we laughed our heads off, we explored the universe in our minds and in our conversations. And it was a wonderful vehicle for allowing the free flow of creativity and conversation and all that stuff. At Pot TV here, I remember back in the day, Greg Williams was probably the manager at the time, and there was a show they had called The Contest.
Oh.
And so they would have people mail them in cannabis samples for them to test on the show. And if you won the test, you were going to get like a volcano vaporizer and other second and third prizes as well. But it entailed Greg Williams and Mark Emery and Chris Bennett and Kirk Tusaw sitting around using their own favorite method of ingestion and sampling the weed that would get sent into them.
Yeah.
And it was a really cool show to watch. You go back in the archives and see this stuff, because to watch how the conversation starts to change as they start to ingest the cannabis.
Yeah.
And then so they would do that, each one, the pipe and the volcano, and Chris was using the volcano, and Marijuana Man had his patented joints.
Yeah.
And, Mark had his big 4-foot bong, and Kirk had some sort of a pipe. And so, they'd smoke, and then the conversation would start to get more lively and more animated, and then all of a sudden they'd kind of stop and go, hey, what did we think of that weed?
Yeah.
And then they'd rate the weed. So it is a really good conscious enhancer.
Yes. Yeah, and there's probably been some real good ideas that we use in the world now because somebody was stoned and thought of it. Some art has been done that way. So many songs have been written while they're stoned and stuff like that. So it's very, very good for creative and artists and stuff like that.
Absolutely.
Yeah, and
so
helped me be off crack and stuff like that. So
So let's get together as a group and hire a bunch of people with guns and badges and make sure nobody ever uses this stuff, eh?
I know, eh? Yeah, because we don't want to be living long and being
creative,
right?
Oh man, I mean, isn't that what Nixon said? He said we can't have these young people sitting around smoking weed and thinking about stuff.
Yeah, exactly.
Don't want them thinking about stuff.
Because the power is in the people.
Oh man,
and not the government. We band together, we can change things.
And what
that's revolution.
My biggest pursuit is really about freedom.
Yeah.
That I couldn't wait to be free.
Yeah.
It was a concept that I had firmly in my brain that I was being deprived of my freedom by my dad. I didn't blame Mom at the time. I should have known Mom was behind it all, as they usually are. Love you, Mom. But seriously, I thought that I'd be the human being I could be. I'd be my best human if I could be free. And I wasn't free within the confines of my parents' home there. They were right-wing Christian people and believed in, spare the rod and spoil the child, and my way and the highway and all of these things. And so I couldn't wait to get out of that. And so I got a car pretty early, a Volkswagen Beetle. I took out the back seat and made it into a bed. Yeah, punch buggy, exactly. I used to play that game with my kids until I hit one.
I've been teaching it
But yeah, and then, I managed to get out of that, my parents' situation. And pretty quickly I realized that, man, I'm not free at all.
No.
I'm quite worried about the police because of my choice of what I want to do. And I'm not somebody who would ever hurt anybody. I can't say ever, because in my teenage years I stole things and stole mostly alcohol. We would break into cars at the curling rink and steal alcohol. And I even broke into did we break in or climb through an open window at the Church of the Epiphany and stole some communion wine? Oh, God made me pay for that, I'll tell you. I was sick for 3 days. But,
he probably left that bad wine out there just for people who were going to steal it, too.
My mom and dad did a really good job, actually, of instilling in me the idea of ethics and, wanting to be a good person. And so that was me, and I wanted to do all of that. So cannabis really helped me in doing all of that. It helped me understand all of that stuff and see all that stuff. But, the freedom that I thought I was going to find that wasn't there has really shaped my life since. It's caused a lot of different things in my life that wouldn't have been there otherwise. I would have been, I think, a much greater version of myself had I not had to deal with all of this. Maybe not, I don't know.
We don't know.
You can never know these things. Maybe this whole pursuit of freedom has brought out the best in me.
Yeah.
It's hard to know. But it certainly has shaped my life.
We always think the grass is greener on the other side.
True.
Right? We don't even know our freedom, freedom we have unless we go to a third world country, see how they live, and then come back here. And then we realize what we really have, because we always want things to be better.
My apologies to those who are living under, far less freedom than we are.
Yeah.
And we probably have one of the worst systems of all for democracy, except for all the other systems of governing people. There's many ways to talk about that, but our freedom is something that we deserve. We own it.
Yeah.
It's a right
but it's something that's very seldom actually granted
Yes.
and respected,
Yeah.
because we live under systems of governance that don't allow for the freedom that we really should have.
Yeah.
And we've been fighting that battle for a very long time.
Oh, the freedom, that's the definition of freedom, right?
Yeah, and for me, the definition of freedom is the right to do or not do whatever you want to do or don't want to do, unless you're harming somebody else.
Exactly.
And that's a definition that I believe was accepted by the courts, decades ago, and it does state it for me.
Yeah.
That I get to do or be whoever I am and whatever I want to do or don't do whatever I want to do or don't want to do, unless there's somebody being harmed in that process. And at that point, I have a responsibility
Yeah.
that goes hand in hand with having the right of freedom. You have the responsibility of not doing harm.
Yeah, exactly.
So doesn't, not just doctors. Nobody should be doing harm out there.
No.
So,
But sometimes in life, you have to.
because there's absolutely no absolutes, almost.
Exactly.
Almost.
Exactly.
And all generalizations are false,
Yeah.
including this one.
Yeah.
And
Including this one,
Yeah.
Because you just never know.
you can argue just about any side of,
Oh, yeah,
of
you
anything,
can.
and there's always an exception to just about any rule.
Yeah.
All those things considered.
Well, how often it happens might not be as much, but yeah, there's always an exception.
Yeah, that's true. Well, maybe Jerry's not going to make it.
I don't know. Poor guy. His car broke down. Did he?
Yeah, I didn't ask him why, because we were too busy.
Is
getting
that the
ready for show.
Mercedes again breaking down?
I don't know, but he
on
did
the,
say
the-
yesterday it was a convertible day.
Oh, convertible. So he's got the Mercedes back.
I don't know.
That's the only thing that's convertible.
We'll have to let him
He's
comment.
got that other big beast of a vehicle. It's not convertible at all. So.
No.
Yeah.
Well, might be convertible into a transformer. It almost looks like a transformer.
He's
I
always
almost think it's going to stand up on
always
end
had
one day, and the
problems with
wheels
that.
are going to start popping out into arms, and
That poor car, man. He's always had problems with that for years and years. I've always known.
Yeah.
I would have got rid of that car probably by now. But being that it's a Mercedes, it's convertible, I can understand.
So who we're talking about is actually a fellow that comes on our show regularly. Yeah. We typically have a segment that we name for him, which is the Martin Medical Moment.
Right there.
It's for the Martin Medical Services, was a dispensary that Jerry Martin owned in Whitewood, Saskatchewan, and operated that for 4 years. And during that time, he gathered a membership of over 1,000 people in a community that only had about 1,000 people, and obviously many people from out of town were coming to use his services as well. He used strict medical protocols that were developed early in the day with compassion clubs with Riel Kapler and Philippe Lucas. And he was trying to do everything right. He was trying to eventually be adopted into the legal marketplace or grandfathered in, like we all thought was going to happen. There was dispensaries, well over 150 operating in Vancouver at the time, and more in Ontario and other places in Canada. And Jerry felt there was a real need in his community, and he was right, and that was proven by the dispensary that he had and how many people came to take advantage of his services. And so over the course of time, we had Trudeau elected into government on a platform of legalizing cannabis. He said that the medical users would be looked after during their legalization, and instead the truth is that legalization was to support Prohibition 2.0 for all the people making money on Prohibition. They continue to do that. The insiders, friends, rich people get to buy expensive licenses and go along with the outrageous regulations to have government dispensing of non-medical cannabis. And you certainly cannot trust the government cannabis that's out there in these stores. If you're a medical user, you do not want to be going to the government stores. In fact, I have it on really good authority from insiders that there's investigations going on at this point to do with Health Canada because of mold that's being found in many of the LP products. And the sad news about that is the insiders that I'm involved with are telling me that when Health Canada is confronted with the idea of there being mold in the weed, they say, well, that's between you and the LP that you ordered it from. Yeah. And when the LPs are being contacted, the majority of them are saying, just sell it anyway, we're not going to take that back. And that is just outrageous. And another reason why they themselves specify very clearly that they are non-medical. And so medical users, be very careful of the government stores. Yeah. Not only is the weed irradiated or chemically treated to reduce the microbe count, which is ludicrous and unnecessary for sure, but now there's mold being found in much of the product that they have, and they're not willing to do much about it because they really don't care. and they're all about money. They're not about patients. They're not about people. They're not about health.
Nope.
And so, we should still be boycotting the legal industry. And until they can get their act together, until the government allows for low barrier access to reasonable access to medical cannabis in the proper forms that people need it, we should not be supporting the government program at all. That's my position on that. Besides the fact that they're continuing to persecute people, that Health Canada now saying that they're going to clamp down on medical users who are growing too much and diverting it into the underground marketplace.
Oh, really?
Well, fuck you, Health Canada. Sorry, Annie Barbie, but I mean, this is serious stuff here. Government people going into people's houses, checking to see how many medicinal plants they're growing, and they're worried about protecting money interests and nothing else in that process. Well, they can get the hell off of my property. They have no business being there. Until there's some evidence, some solid complaint of significance that some damage has been done to somebody that I'm responsible for, they should stay the hell away from me. Don't even talk to me. Leave me alone as a human being. I don't want to see my public servants unless I want to see my public servants. I don't want to be asked anything by them unless I got something that I need to be asked about for my protection, not theirs and not their friends. It's getting beyond the pale as far as just how outrageous this all is. And now we've got our public servants again worried about cannabis getting into the marketplace. We need more cannabis in the world. We need more people growing cannabis in the world. We need our governments, our public servants, to be subsidizing and encouraging cannabis in our lives and in the marketplace. It is helping people. It has nothing but benefits to offer. The chance of harming yourself or misusing cannabis are slim to almost none.
Yeah.
I mean, you can green out, you can eat too much edibles,
but you're gonna wake up.
You can die of anything, and you can eat too much and die of anything, but you can't eat too much and die of cannabis. And it's not a problem. It's never been something they need to worry about. There's no role of government in commerce between individuals, groups of people that one has what the other wants, one's willing to pay for what the other has, and there you go. You've got commerce going on. It is not the role of government to interfere with commerce, to impede transactions and to get involved that way. It is only the role of government to encourage commerce between people that want to trade between themselves. And they have a role to play if there's damage being caused, if there's dangers involved, in the role of reasonable regulations.
And they're being dangerous by allowing this moldy stuff to be sold. And because people are going to get sick, then they're going to be saying, we told you cannabis was bad for you, right? And then it's sort of like they're setting themselves up to maybe change
only the serious medical patients that have certain conditions are really going to be affected too much by the mold in cannabis. You typically burn it before you inhale it. But it is certainly not recommended that people smoke moldy weed. But it's mostly not recommended that people with serious compromised immune systems, health issues, smoke moldy weed. But
it's no good.
You're right. I mean, it all looks like the government has been on a mission, in a war against the community of people that would use drugs other than they sanction. There's a lot of drugs in the world. People are takers of drugs. Human beings, they take drugs. That's just the way it is. They're going to take drugs, and anybody who tells them not to take drugs is just going to cause them to take more drugs. And so, people take drugs. Get over it, people take drugs. And this is a little bit about some people that say people shouldn't be taking drugs, and maybe they do or don't take drugs, those people that are saying it, and maybe they don't even understand what drugs are. Maybe they're smoking a cigarette, drinking a brandy, popping back some sugar, and saying people shouldn't be taking drugs. But we have that element of people who think that other people shouldn't take drugs. They don't take drugs, other people shouldn't. You don't need drugs. Not your business what other people do. People are going to take drugs. But those people are just used by other people that want to not have you use these drugs because they want you to use these drugs. And we live in a world where the powers that be have influenced our public servants, our way of life here, gotten into our business, and they've said, okay, you can have these drugs, you can have caffeine, you can have alcohol, you can have nicotine, you can have white refined sugar, you can have these pharmaceutical synthetics that we've got, you can have all of these drugs, but you can't have these drugs over here. The reality of it is that the drugs you can have are usually the ones you can produce yourself, usually the ones that are going to cause you less problems than the ones that are allowed, but that's not the point. the point is not that you're not allowed to use these drugs because they're causing society problems and they're going to cause you problems. The point is they don't want you using these drugs because they want you using these drugs because they're profiting on the use of those drugs, be it by the money that you're spending on them or by the fact that they can control your behavior by the use of them and keep people drunk and keep people angry and keep people sick, because that all benefits those people that are making money with selling pharmaceutical
You can grow your own vegetables and get your vitamins that way, or
That's
you can go buy them in a bottle in a pill form, right?
Well, you can grow your own vegetables and you can grow your own herbs.
Yes,
but you're getting vegetables are medicinal as well, of course.
But you can get vitamin pills where you say it's pharmaceutical.
Exactly.
Right, where they change the yes, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah, I see what you're saying.
You don't need to take these pills.
Vegetables or vitamin pills or herbs or synthetic pharmaceuticals.
Exactly.
You get your choice, except you don't get your choice because they're restricting the use of these. And now the pharmaceutical companies own the vitamin companies, so I'm not sure what I think about that, but what do you know? Hopefully people are testing that stuff on their own in their private lab to find out if really that is the vitamin that they say it is or not.
Yeah, I like my vitamin C cannabis.
Yeah, that's the vitamin I like too. And vitamin C itself is very good too.
Yes, it is, but okay, we'll call it vitamin CA then.
So yeah, I mean, if I want to complete the thought on this whole idea about where the role of government is with respect to interfering with business, and that their only role really is to put on regulations that are reasonable, that make sense, and the other side of those regulations that they might impose on something that they decide has some danger going on, that there's been some damage that's being caused because of these substances or the trading of these substances, then those regulations, they need to be the least intrusive possible on our human rights as individuals. And also because you can't trust your government, for one thing, but they need to put on regulations that are reasonable, that make sense, that address the issues that are arising, and they need to be done in a way that is transparent, that has some mechanisms to make sure that those are proper regulations, because you can't trust your government. No. You can't trust your government because if they're going to put regulations on something and it's going to restrict something and it's going to cost some group some amounts of money or some individual some amounts of money, they're going to spend some money to try to influence government to not do what the government should do. Yeah. And so that lobbying is going on all the time. You really can't trust them. So they really need to have some very quick, clearly spelled out ways of doing due diligence and doing some checking on whether or not things are reasonable or not. And they need to, like I say, be the least intrusive possible. And the regulation that works best for most things, and most of the things that are regulated, they're regulated in a way that is the same for all of them, which is just information. Yeah. The government says, okay, if you're going to sell that, you got to put on the label that this is the correct way to use it, or this is what can happen if you misuse it. And this is what's in it. And so we want the ingredients, we want the possibilities, we want to know if there's potential for misuse, those sorts of things. Just about everything gets regulated that way. That's all people really need. Nobody's really trying to hurt themselves. We're just trying to help ourselves. We're seeking out ways to answer our particular conditions and situations, whatever they are. And so those make sense. Put on there what's in there. We want that. Mm-hmm. Put on there, these are the dosages that work best. If there's a potential for overdose, especially fatal overdose, put that on there. Let us know what that is. And people are self-regulating. We can do this like this. But the role of government in regulating has gotten way out of hand. The role of government in everything has gotten way out of hand. Yeah. They take the reins of power, and they believe that they are now the authorities, that freedom only ends with them, that they are free now. The Prime Minister and his office is free to make whatever laws they want, and we're all free to obey those laws, and that's just the way it is. And for the next 4 years, or until something else happens, or until they get elected out, we just have to obey this next group of authorities that have taken power over us. And this is not what democracy is supposed to be all about. This is not what freedom is. And we really need to think long and hard about this, because it's affecting all of us, and it's affecting our whole society and our future and everything in very, very dramatic ways.
But it seems like the parties are all the same, so when we go to vote, if we didn't vote for anybody, then that puts fear into people's minds of what's going to happen.
Truth is, the system is rigged.
Yes, exactly. So they vote anyways, and they vote for whoever they think is going to do the best, but it always turns out to be what it is today.
Well, because you get to vote for puppet A, puppet B, maybe puppet C.
Yeah.
Puppet D isn't a puppet, and maybe they'll attract your vote, but they're not going to attract most of the votes because they don't have the money for it. And if they did get close to being into power, well, then they'd quickly become a puppet as well. Yeah. And this is a bad system that allows for that. I mean, the fact that we can say this is going on with some accuracy, that it really doesn't matter which group of gangsters we put in there, whether it be the red or the blue or the orange, that always they're really working on behalf of the corporate elite who has their ear because they have their pocketbooks. They've financed those campaigns. They've done favors that need to be returned. All of this is just part of our system that isn't spoken to anywhere near enough. There are good people that get into politics. There are good people in politics. But the system is rigged. It's rigged against us. And we need to rethink that whole idea of what limitations we put onto these public servants. How much power do they really have? And then they're also insulated from prosecution in most cases. It's very difficult to go after them when they do sell us out to the corporate elite and pass laws that cost us and make money for them. And that's what's going on all the time. And the biggest example, obviously, is cannabis prohibition. Yeah. It's a protection racket for corporate interests. It's been run on our dime. By our public servants that are actually doing the bidding of these financially elite people, and it's becoming so clear that we need to reset this. We need to put real proper limits on what they can and cannot do with respect to enacting and enforcing laws. We need to make them transparent in how they operate and how they pass those laws. The role of government is to really keep peace in society, to facilitate business, if you will, to keep us safe and be our servants, help educate our children and help us with health care and those sorts of things. So they're spending our money to do those things all the time. And in spending that money, they're taking bids from different places. Well, we should all be part of that process. None of this should be behind closed doors. No. This should be a very open process of us getting to scrutinize what it is that's going on with our public servants that we are paying to be in these positions and do these jobs. And other than some national security issues, and that's where it becomes a slippery slope of just everything becomes a national security. But other than that, just about everything that your MP is doing, we should be able to witness. We should be able to understand the conversations that he's having with these people that are lobbying him or her, and why they come to that decision.
While he's at work, yes.
While they're at work. They get some privacy when they get home. Then the camera can be turned off. And the film crew goes home to their home, and the minister doesn't do any business at night at home on the phone behind the closed doors, And then in the morning again they meet back up, and you can tune into it on MP Watch, and you can look at what your MP is doing or anybody else's MP. And it costs less than a bomb that they drop on a daily basis somewhere in the world, I mean, I'm sure. So, we've gotten pretty good at Zoom. So we should be able to just see what they're doing. So they should be transparent. And the other way that they've insulated themselves, besides doing everything out of sight, is where even if there is pretty good evidence that there was some collusion or corruption involved in things, there's really no mechanism to go after them unless there's a really clear paper trail, which they don't do.
No.
And so that they're not accountable for what they do. They can get into power, into office, not power in my opinion. Yeah. They can get into these fragile places of public service and do a lot of bad. I mean, whoever decided that they were going to prohibit cannabis and some of the other regulations that we've had to live with, some of the things that we hear about, the fines that are imposed on people for ridiculous things, completely unjustified, but there you go. Smoking on a beach, $5,000. Give me a break,
Wow,
so many ridiculous things that's the one that just came to mind that I heard just today, because there's lots of these things that we know aren't right, but they get to do it anyway. And if you look into why they're doing it, there's usually somebody making some money on it. There's somebody that's gaining something as a result of those things that they do that to us look like, well, why the hell would they do that? I mean, that doesn't make any sense. Well, it's making money. And if you follow the money trail and you see where the money's going, you can say, okay, well, this is a friend of theirs that helped them with the campaign. So that's why that they're getting this favor done. And that favor means that we as people have to pay an extra this or that for this or that.
Why though? Why do we have to pay for
We
favors?
shouldn't. None of this is right,
It's not narcissistic.
And that's what I say. When that level of corruption is going on, when they're not serving us, but they're serving some other master, then that's corruption. and it's corruption that harms a lot of people. So in justice, the way that we've deemed, the principles of justice over hundreds of years has resulted in justice being symbolized by an older matriarchal woman that's holding, and that's a redundant statement,
Yes.
an older matriarch holding a set of scales, blindfolded to many different things about the person that's brought before them, dispensing justice based on how much weight is felt on this side by the evidence that proves beyond a reasonable doubt that this person did this damage and how much that damage weighs. And then the job is to balance those scales. Well, not quite. We don't quite do that like that, but we're supposed to.
They make lists of good and bad. So if you're thinking of an idea, the good things forever and the bad things of it.
Right.
And then if it's a bit longer list, and that's sort of like the same thing we're talking about, because we'll go that way. Because
absolutely, that is used in our society,
Yes.
but in our judicial system, we've moved to where it's the rule of law, where if you break the law and found guilty of just breaking the law, then it doesn't matter how much damage was done that determines the penalty. It's how much penalty was given in other court cases and how well your lawyers can argue with the Crown's lawyers. And it's not based on these principles of fundamental justice and common law that we should be still using along with whatever other system that we want to use. But the common law system is a great system for at least to have a checks and balance system on the system we're using. System too many times. System.
It's a system.
It's just a system. And it's the system that's wrong. Because in that system, when you look at it like that, when you're a public servant, you're, like I mentioned, in a fragile position of respecting the rights of the people that you're there to serve. And if you sign into law something that, there's corruption involved in that, and you're actually serving the interests of these other people, and like you say, if there's, now we're going to be penalized as people for the favor that was given to this public servant or politician. Before he was a servant, he was a politician, a constantly lying person. And so that the penalty that would be then imposed, because the damage that would be done of a signature that enacts into law something like cannabis prohibition, where now you've got millions of people going to end up with criminal records which aren't valid because it's not a crime to have possession of a plant that you thought was going to help make you feel better, where there's no victim involved and no one was harmed and no intent to hurt anybody. Not a crime, never should have been a crime. But this is the way that the common law justice principles would determine such things. So in this case, you've got a public servant that's doing that much damage.
But it
what kind of a penalty should they be given, right?
It doesn't affect them because they brought in these cannabis laws where we're not allowed to help people who are dying on the street. So, but it's bad for us when we break a law, but when they do it,
that's what I'm saying.
Yes, I know.
That's what I'm saying. They're not.
Mary says we should have cannabis activists run in politics. Mary, our Mary.
There's some good ones.
Yes.
But yeah, I mean, it should be about public servant.
Yeah.
They're serving the public, and if they're not, then that's a pretty serious crime.
Yeah.
And we need to be able to hold them accountable for that. And they should not only be as accountable as a regular human being would be for having done something of damage, but they should be more accountable. And I understand that they need to have some ability, some flexibility to be able to make mistakes.
Yeah, of course.
And that's fine.
Right?
We as a society would have ways of addressing that and dealing with that. The mistakes are not what I'm talking about.
No.
I'm talking about things that are corrupt.
Yeah.
Where the crime is at least willful blindness, criminal negligence, but much more likely fully on and understanding and knowing the damage that was, or at least the potential scope of damage that they're involved with doing and still continuing to do.
But money was more important than the damage, so we've got to make
money or life.
Yeah.
Maybe they're presented with money or your life.
Yeah.
I don't know what happens. I don't know why these good people that get into politics somewhere end up, acting on the behalf of corporate interests. I mean, do they get bought out? Is it money? Is it security? Are they told, we know we have pictures of you, or your family's vulnerable, or whatever it is. I don't know how it happens. It shouldn't happen. We should have ways of figuring out if that's going on. We should have ways of making it really, really hard for that to go on. So when we elect somebody into office there, they don't have an easy way to be corrupted. that it's hard for them to be corrupted.
Yeah.
So because if it's easy, then it's too tempting, and it'll happen. It's going to happen. You can absolutely guarantee that it will happen.
Yeah.
So let's make it really hard. Let's make them transparent in their job. Let's make it so that we get good people who appreciate the scrutiny, who appreciate the lack of easy ability to be corrupted, who will act on behalf of the people.
Yeah.
You know, that each individual will be their concern. The rights of every individual is their concern. And that they're going to stand up to those bribes, and they're going to stand up to those threats, and we're going to be able to protect them from most of that. We need to do this because the corporations have become very sophisticated in their ability to affect what goes on in our political world and in our governance. And that is why governments can't be trusted, is because they're in bed with the financial elite, and they certainly can't be trusted. They just want to exploit us, use us for everything that we can give to them, milk every bit of profit out of us that's available. I mean, because that's business. They're just doing what business does.
Yeah.
But we should have protection from that. We shouldn't allow them free access to our public servants behind closed doors, and then those public servants the ability to enact whatever laws they want and get away with it at the end of their term because there's no accountability.
Yeah.
We've gotten ourselves into a really bad system here, and we're all paying for it on a daily basis, and it's getting way worse. And the ability of us to get out of this, the tipping point of us to be able to get, you know, our freedoms back is fast, you know, going to pass us by if we don't seize the moment.
For Isabel, she's
it's the next generation that I'm concerned for as well.
Yeah.
So,
well, what's it going to be like for her? But all I can do is prepare and, you know, tell her that things are not always the best, and there are bumps in the road.
Educate our kids as best we can about the nature of this world that we live in.
Yeah.
And parents for millennia have had to tell their children to be careful about the authorities.
Yes,
you know?
And our parents used to shield us from the bad, and I'm not shielding anymore because I thought that was a false way to grow up as a child, to think that the world was so good and it was an easy place to live, because it's not really when you become an adult. Like you telling yourself,
you just have to be careful with kids.
Yes, enjoy your childhood, because there's a lot of responsibilities coming up as an adult that you're going to, you know, have to deal with, and I tell her that a lot, right?
Yeah.
Just I don't want her to think it's just strawberries and blueberries out there, you know.
It's the balance.
It's the balance, and
it's
she's
the balance.
learning all the balance.
Life is all about balance. Everything being in balance.
Yeah.
And you know,
well, and I think there's more good than there is bad.
I do too.
But
I believe in good. I believe in love.
Balance is just a word. Yeah,
I think we all got here by love.
Yep.
You know, the vast majority of life on this planet gets there because the one was attracted to the other, felt that desire to copulate and produce, and it's all through nature.
Yeah.
It's certainly in human nature that the vast majority of humans are born out of a bond of love that happens. And love is what gives us our instinct of survival. We love life. We love being alive, and we'll do anything to keep it. And you looked at the different lengths that people will go to survive, you know, because we love life, and it's all about love. And what we're looking for is love.
Yeah.
So that's why we want to survive, because we want love. We want to find that love. We want to feel that love. We want to give that love. Yeah. Love is the answer to all of these different things. And that's why I say you need to be careful with children. They scare very easily. Yeah. And they need to be given that balance very clearly of the positive and the negative. And recognizing that we live in a world where there's predators, where there's jungles full of all kinds of beasts, where the government can't be trusted, where there's dangers around every corner. And they need to understand that you don't trust very much. You trust your instincts, you trust your friends and your family, well, maybe sometimes. Yeah. But, you know, they also need that other balance of understanding that there's so much love in the world, there's so much support if you look for it. There's so much beauty and ways to find those positive vibrations. And so that's the whole trick to life and into raising kids, in my opinion, is to have balanced children that turn into balanced adults that can take the good with the bad, that can recognize and be able to handle the nastiness of life, and also be able to really spend a lot of time in their life enjoying all the beauty of life. Yeah. You know? You can't have one without the other. You need the balance.
You need the
It's got to be
balance,
there.
yeah.
You can't just live in bliss or you don't know you got it, for one thing. Maybe you can, but I don't think so. I don't think the bliss lasts very long for people because, like I say, pretty soon you don't know you got it. And pretty soon the stuff you're upset about is pretty petty stuff
Yeah.
because you got nothing serious to be upset about.
And
You're
then
going to
you
be
win,
upset
and
half
then
the
you win
time
the
anyway.
lottery and you got lots of bliss, but then you get no bliss because you got to deal with other people's problems asking you for money and stuff.
Yeah,
like
be
that,
careful
right?
what you wish for.
Yeah.
And you know, always look on the bright side of life.
I love that. Monty Python, they're all on the cross and they're being crucified, and they start singing, "Always look on the bright side of life." It's
true.
That's great. That's one of the best scenes I've
Yeah,
ever seen.
exactly. I love those guys. I love how they were so brave to stand up and make comments about all these moors we have.
Remember that as he was going through I'm going to shit in your general direction from the top of the castle there, right? If you don't go away, right? Oh, Monty Python, I love it. Yes.
Man. Absolutely, 100%.
Hey, your clock's go ahead an hour on Sunday. Did you know that?
Is that right, eh?
Yeah, we're springing into spring again.
Springing ahead.
Yeah.
I thought we were going to stop doing all of that.
I thought well, that's what Horgan was saying, but apparently we have to get Seattle and California on board to do the same thing.
It's a big logistics problem.
Of course, there's always somebody who wants
Well,
to do
any way you
something,
do it, right now there's a whole bunch of these people are off and these people are not off, and now what the hell? I don't know nothing about it. I got too many other important things to worry about besides that.
Yeah.
And
So how's the RV doing?
we should probably get to that.
Yeah.
You know?
I'll
What
give
we've
you a
been doing
segue.
on the show for
I'll give you a segue.
the last, I thought we already had the segue. You know, this show is dedicated to the pursuit of truth, hope, and change. And the topic that is front and center for us is, of course, cannabis and the pursuit of the rights of medical people to access cannabis. And for the last number of months here, the show has been about our pursuit of having a low barrier access community cannabis shop where people can come and get cannabis without all the barriers that exist at the government stores. They can get medical grade cannabis. They can get it at prices that are reasonable for daily users. They can get cannabis in all of its different forms, and especially the high quality and the high dose cannabis that people would need if they're using it for medical purposes. And the main focus of the project that this low barrier access community cannabis shop has been sparked by is a project to address the overdose crisis and people that are dying from overdosing on the tainted opioid supply that's on the streets and the other hard substances as well. The Cannabis Substitution Program does not discriminate against the other harmful substances that are out there. We have many people in our program that are getting off of alcohol with it and numerous other drugs as well. But the whole idea is that these hard substances trap people into a life of addiction and continuing to need to feed their habit because mostly the effect of doing these substances for sustained periods of time that causes a physical dependence that is hard to overcome. It's a boundary between quitting these drugs that is very difficult to overcome for people. And that's the big barrier that everybody faces when they're addicted to these substances. And that's why the term addicted is appropriate, because there is a compulsion to continue doing them based on a physical need to prevent these harmful and painful side effects from stopping the use of these things. And so that what we learned through the use of cannabis, that especially in the form of high-dose edibles, and in fact, I'd say that it's very rare that people could use cannabis to get through that withdrawal process without high-dose edibles, that just smoked cannabis itself is really not enough to help enough to do that. But with edibles, many people find that a couple of good strong brownies or whatever dosage works for them, but always a high dose, will allow them to get through those 3, 4, 5 days of excruciating physical pain and get to the other side. So our project, when the overdose crisis hit, was to try to make it as easy as possible as we could for people to get access to the high-dose edibles. Living in a world where cannabis is illegal, where there were illegal, unlicensed, unregulated dispensaries that did have high-dose edibles available for people, but it wasn't common knowledge amongst the hard drug users or society in general that there was a way through withdrawal with high-dose edibles. It was just it would just be considered as to whether or not cannabis could get people through withdrawals or replace the use of opioids. And typically it was understood that, you know, cannabis can't do that smoking cannabis just doesn't provide enough to replace the use of these substances, because you can't really smoke too much cannabis. You can only get to that certain level, and after that, you know, you're not getting any higher, you're not killing pain any better, you're just wasting, you know, the breaths on cannabis because you've already smoked a couple of really good grams of quadruple A cannabis, and that's about as high as you're going to get off smoking it. But with edibles, you can achieve that.
And NA wasn't telling you to go and use cannabis to help you get off when you were trying to get
Not
off
at
those
all.
other hard drugs too. And even the treatment centers weren't saying that. So maybe, you know, now we can actually see an evidence of it. But
That's right.
where I think some of the treatment centers are changing their rules on stuff like that.
Which is why it's so bad that the BC health officials are coming out and saying that they don't have enough evidence that cannabis is a good harm reduction tool. They should be, you know, shouting from the rooftops, cannabis high-dose edibles works for getting through withdrawal for most people.
Yeah.
You know, and in the form of high-quality concentrates or, again, high-dose edibles, it can absolutely replace those substances that are being used for pain and other actual debilitating conditions. I mean, it's not like most people are addicted to opioids and they're just using them because they're using them because they like the effect of them and they like the effects of them and that's why they started using them and that's why they're using them. It's quite not that way at all. It's only a very small percentage of people that try the opioids, that continue on with using them and get to that point where you consider them addicted. A lot of people try opioids, you know, through their youth and early adulthood, and they reject them. They don't stay using them. The people that end up continuing on find that they're getting relief from physical or emotional pain that they've been suffering, or spiritual pain, a disconnection from community and family, and these other things that haunt people and harm people. That's where they get some relief. That's why they continue to use them. That's why they end up addicted. So we're not talking about the majority of people who are trying to get off of opioids that don't have underlying health conditions that they're addressing with their opioid use. Most people do. So once you've got to the other side of withdrawal and you now still have your underlying health conditions, you still need to deal with that pain or depression or whatever it is.
I wish I had some high-dose edibles for the 8 years that I was doing crack. You know, I didn't even know about it. I
That's
just
right.
would smoke about 5 joints, and then it would finally get me to sleep.
Yeah.
But I wouldn't want to smoke those 5 joints until I had no money left or I couldn't get any more, right?
So yeah, it's very irresponsible. It's a real dereliction of duty for the health officials here in British Columbia to not be recognizing the value of cannabis. They are really not doing their duty. Yeah. It does not take very much.
Especially when we're the leaders of the country.
Well, sure, and
right.
the work that's been done by Professor Malloy.
Yes.
I mean, with the professor at University of British Columbia, Dr. M.J. Malloy, has released dozens and dozens of papers speaking to the efficacy of cannabis in this regard. So it's really, really, really irresponsible to the point of criminal by our public servants here in British Columbia to be dismissing cannabis as a harm reduction tool and a way to address the opioid crisis. That knowledge needs to be out there for everybody to know, and then the availability of high-dose edibles needs to be super easy for people to get.
If we could only put out cannabis commercials like they have mask commercials, eh?
This is...
yeah, really, eh?
Or maybe at the hockey games, instead of seeing you know, Molson Canadian or Budweiser or these other, I shouldn't be naming them. I shouldn't be giving them any advertising. But you know, why wouldn't you have like you know, BC Bud, or some other strain, or you know, something to do with cannabis there. It's really quite the world.
Even a simple sign that says cannabis is healthy for you. Mm-hmm. You know, it's just a simple sign. And then maybe you can have your beer sign or whatever beside it, right?
I don't know. I would just like our public servants to be working for us and telling us the truth.
Yeah.
So anyway, so what we did was we set up this program where we give out high-dose edibles to people to make it as easy as we can for them to get access and to get off of these drugs. And we did it on the downtown east side of Vancouver, where there's a huge visual problem of people that are, in the trouble that we're talking about. The overdose crisis is hitting all demographics, and people are dying from all walks of life and through all financial groups or whatever you will. But here it's very visible that there's a lot of people that are homeless, that are on the street, and that's why we're here. We decided that this was the best place to try to make it available to people that would line up and get our products. So over 4 years ago now, we started the Cannabis Substitution Project with the full knowledge of City Council, with the full knowledge of the Vancouver Police Department. The provincial and federal governments also were informed of what I was going to do. And so we began giving out high-dose edibles to people, and we did that for 3.5 years on the street with people lined up for hours to get care packs with 4 to 6 edibles in them and a couple of joints. The joints became important too, by the way. We found that people with the high-dose edibles, it takes a while for those to kick in, and a joint will kick in right away. And so they would go and take the edible, smoke the joint, and 20 minutes later, 40 minutes later, they're okay.
Yeah.
So that project prompted City Hall to pass a motion to allow for low barrier access. In their motion, they were going to support and license low barrier access, which they intend to do, providing the federal government also allows for that. And so it took us about a year to find a storefront because we were honest and upfront about wanting to provide cannabis as an alternative to opioids and street drugs. And most landlords, have been warned by their lawyers not to rent to people that are going to be providing cannabis outside of the Cannabis Act. And so it took about a year, but we rented the space that we're in right now. And for 4.5 months, we had a storefront offering a variety of all the things that you should be able to get that people need with respect to cannabis: high quality, high dose, low price. And instead of the government supporting us, we put in an application quickly to the federal government, along with an emergency application for a ministerial exemption. We had been basically running our program for 3.5 years with great success and no problems. And the doctors that were on board with us and Professor Malloy all wrote letters in support of us, stating that if we stopped doing our program, that the people that are involved would be put at risk of death. Our program now includes 250 registered people that get 420 milligrams every 4 days of their choosing of high-dose edibles, THC, CBD, whatever they want, and we track all of that. And so that's what we're doing at this point. But because the federal government was not coming forward in a timely fashion with the exemption for us or the licensing for us, we ended up getting evicted because the landlord was threatened by the licensing department of the city, who weren't even aware of the motion passed by the councillors. But all of that came and happened. We then moved immediately into an RV, no longer able to do our program from Van Du twice a week, having people line up for hours, not willing to do that, not able to do that. Decided that because we'd had a store for 4.5 months where people could come 8 hours a day, 6 days a week and access the program, that we needed to make sure that that didn't miss a beat. So we right away got an RV, and we've been running our program from the RV, parked 40 feet away from this shop that we were in, and we're now moving into our 18th week. Incredible. We haven't been interfered with by the police for 10 weeks now, which is awesome.
Which is good, yeah.
But for the first 8 weeks, 2 weeks into being into the RV, we were raided by the local beat cops who got complaints that there was drugs being sold out of an RV. Wouldn't pay any attention to the letters that we had supporting us or who we were or what we were doing, and subsequently backed off, subsequently evaluated what we were doing, decided to tell us that we should stop anyway until we get our licenses, but I told them, and that's the case, that we cannot stop what we're doing. We might, or they might not care about the people that we're helping, that we'll be put at risk of death if we stop, but the people that work with me and myself, we certainly care about these people. We've known them for years now. They've become family. We've watched them go from being people that were drug sick and suffering in their life to people that are doing very well, and so happy to have us here as a resource, that there's just no ethical way or moral way that we could stop doing what we're doing. But that has settled down, and perhaps they're just waiting, as we are, for the federal government to give us the permission that we need to be able to continue doing what we're doing in the way that we have proven is the right way to help this community, and that's where we're at this point. So at this time, we're going to go out and see the RV. We're going to go check in with the crew.
Let me move my chair. See your staff. Apparently they're allowed to smoke dope there.
We do on-site drug testing right in the RV. We have to make sure that we're putting the proper products out there. And I'm saying that, and it's kind of facetiously said, but not really, because that is an important part of how we dispense things here. Is we do have our experts test them, but we also do have testing equipment. Beautiful day in Vancouver, British Columbia, Canada, in the heart of the downtown east side. We have one lane that separates us from the biggest drug dealing center in North America, we're told. How you doing? And this is our RV here.
First aid.
Hi John, you willing to be on camera?
Oh, I'm on camera all the time.
All the time. This is John. How are you doing today?
How you doing? I'm here smoking 420.
How long have you been getting help from our program here?
Oh, more than 3 years.
3 years,
Yeah.
eh? Yeah, has it
4
helped
years,
you?
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
There's the times when I can't get a joint, or when I'm really angry, or even it helps when my knee is just called a meniscus.
Right.
You know nothing about a meniscus, but my doctor says that I have a meniscus.
I see.
And I'm missing the kiss, I guess. I don't know.
We're all missing the kiss these
I
days.
guess so, right?
That's for sure. Well, that's
Anyways,
awesome.
it helps with because I walk on it all day, and I'm supposed to have a tension bandage, I'm supposed to take medication, but this is my medication.
It really helps you get through your day.
Well, if it takes the pain away, which I don't have, I'll talk about.
So how do you know that we're out here in the RV because we're waiting for a license to get a store, and right now we don't have a license, and we're at risk of being busted perhaps at any moment. How do you feel about all that?
How much would your license be?
Well, it's not a matter of money, it's a matter of the government agreeing that we can do what we're doing. Right now they haven't agreed yet that we can help you get that.
A license?
Well, help you get the cannabis medicine.
Oh,
Yeah.
well, yeah. Well, it's either you guys or my nurses and doctors having it prescribed to me, and I don't even know how they get that done.
I see.
They also try and give me gummies sometimes.
Yeah? Your doctors try to get you gummies.
Yeah, because they know it keeps me off of speed.
Nice. Nice. I like that a lot. Do you tell them about our program and if you get some edibles and stuff here?
Yeah, I get a lot of your edibles. Yeah, they really. Yeah, you guys help a lot.
Very good. Well, thanks, John. I appreciate that. You have a great day. Oh, yes, the Healing Wave van.
I hope I didn't break the camera with the bad looks.
Oh, you're a fabulous looking human being. That smile is contagious, and it probably helps people smile all across the city.
It's gonna be right all over the world with that smile.
I know.
That's what I told when I was like,
You're doing a fine job.
thank you. Have a good day.
So the Healing Wave RV, the CSP program.
Hi.
We've been out here on the side of the road for into our 18th week now. We're trying to keep it on the down low, which I don't like to do, but it's kind of a way that we got a truce with the VPD, is that if I would take off all the signs that we had put up around our RV, and take the tent down and make it so you can't see that there's any cannabis in there, then I guess they're leaving us alone. So that's where we are so far. But really, I think that we should have signs out explaining what we're doing and how we're helping this situation. It would be important for the people driving by to understand that cannabis high-dose edibles can help with this situation, and it should be supported. But here we are in an RV looking kind of almost clandestine. I'm going to give you a little look at the CSP door. Hi, George.
Hey, how's it going?
Sure, welcome to the show. What do you got today? Variety of different things.
Got some new donations here, little guys, 25
Those were from
milligrams.
Anissa Warner, I know that.
Yeah,
Thank you, Anissa. That's absolutely wonderful of you.
Caramels, gummies.
We got some of Mary's cookies still.
Some of Mary's Rice Krispies, the last ones to go here very soon.
We got Robert's caramels.
Yep.
Got some of Sean's gummies there. Got some caps from Weeds, Glass and Gifts, some CBD and some THC caps, and we got some topicals. We got joints there. Everybody gets a joint with their bag. So yeah,
Chat says, hi, George.
we're gonna go in the other door.
Just push them out of the way.
I wish they were honking to support us, which they would do if we had signs out so they knew what we were doing. But he's honking at a car that's parked in his way.
Oh, I know I don't get
Hello.
a bag
We
here.
need more lights, people.
Well,
We need good
Soon
lights.
won't.
one more there.
We're gonna get that hour.
You want to- or, Neil, you want
Sure.
that one?
Yeah, well,
No, that one's already off.
we'll be our own lighting people.
There's another one right above your head, too.
Yeah.
Okay, fine, you missed it. No, right here, hanging on the mesh net. There.
In the mesh net.
In the mesh
I
net.
got one. Yeah, I got
So
it.
hi everybody.
Hi.
Hey.
Hi.
Welcome to the Ganja Mobile.
This one's dead.
Yeah, hand it to Andrew there.
There's a pack of batteries on the table.
He'll put new batteries in that.
There.
So how's the day been?
There you go. It's been fantastic as always.
Here, I'll give you that one.
Another fantastic day in the hippie van.
Every day is a fantastic day here.
Where am I hanging this?
It's
You're welcome. Enjoy
every
it,
day
man.
is
It's
good.
good.
I
Trust
don't
me.
know.
I don't know.
Oh, right over here is
I
good.
know,
I
sure.
need one on you.
Okay.
Okay, go ahead.
Lighting is everything apparently.
Yes.
Every day is good.
But when you got a face made for radio, you want to have less lighting, I think.
And Neil needs help there.
He's looking for where can I hang this? I don't know
Bend the
anymore.
prongs one way and slide them in between the sun visor.
Oh.
Do that.
Yeah,
Yes,
but-
the other one.
yeah.
One to
Yeah,
those.
there you go.
Yeah, but now you got to pull out the little thing there. This is live TV, folks.
Yeah, yeah,
You know, I wish we had a second camera. We could show you what Anil's working on
Neil,
over
you can
there.
hold it for a second so that
But
he can do that. And
You want me to hold the
his
camera?
hands.
I have no idea how this attaches.
You have to
Yeah,
pull
well,
these things out,
See it?
and then you got to hook it onto there, and then you got to rehook it
Oh,
back in.
I see.
Yes.
So for you, those of you at home that have dealt with these, the way to do it is you pull this one out, and then
Yeah,
you can
perfect.
You put that
disconnect
through the
it,
hole.
and then put it into the little ring. So you have these little rings here, like this one here, and he's going to hook the light up to that, and I'll run the camera for a little while.
There you go.
So,
Teamwork.
in fact, you should give me this for a second.
There you go. It's all yours.
That's
So,
what I said.
Now people can see what's going on.
Yeah, there you
There
go.
we go.
It was our day yesterday.
It's going.
So that's Neil. He's our producer of this show and the other pot TV shows that are run from this location. Well, from Vancouver anyway. And
Because it's
the
only
most
burns for a
amazing
certain
person.
amount of time.
you were going to tell us about something, weren't you? Wasn't I going to?
I don't. You know, I'll tell you whatever you like, Neil. I mean, I am 100% supportive of the project. I can't. It's been my absolute honor to document it as far as I have, and my personal pleasure to have seen all the things that I've seen off camera of your incredible work. I don't
thank
know
you
how
for that.
anyone could possibly see what has been documented here and say that this program is not effective and helping people and necessary. Like, I think it is obvious.
And I
And
think
thank you to Big Al in Santa Clara, California for this hemp hat.
nice.
Hemp, it's great.
You already got a perfect dome there. What do you need a hat
Well,
for?
I didn't shave it this morning.
Is it a cold thing?
Yeah.
That
it's
keeps your head
fairly-
warm?
If I don't shave my head, then I throw this on. So it's cool in the studio.
It's
so.
cool in any case. Wherever you are wearing that, it's pretty cool.
What they say.
So I was going to ask you something. You've seen a lot to do with this program. Do you think that the reason we never get anybody from the government down here is because they don't want to have seen what we're doing, because they don't want to have to change their mind about things?
Yeah.
Am I just a conspiracy nut?
I think it's undeniable, and I think it's, I mean, all that type of law enforcement comes down to the enforcement, like whether somebody wants to fight you for it. Like, I've got a joint in my pocket right now. It's not from illicit source. Do you want to fight me for it? Like, is that really what you want to do? So, and that's the thing. No one really wants to have to deal with you because you would be a pain in court. They wouldn't want to have to deal with you in person because why do you want to attack someone who's doing something nice? Really, like, it's even if you're facing enormous pressure, it doesn't feel good. There's no amount of money on the other end that's going to make
So I'm
you
not
feel
completely
good about
crazy thinking that they're just trying to avoid me because they just don't want to do this.
Absolutely not.
Yeah. Because, like you say, if they would come down here and have a look, you would only need to spend like the better part of an hour, and you would have seen several people.
Oh yeah, and again, this is episode 78. There's plenty of documentation.
Yes.
So if you only had an hour, don't worry. I got plenty more. Like, there's the video, the 2-year update has more than 75 testimonials of people who use this service, all saying it's vital. 75 people, all not being hurt, all clearly safe therapeutic. To me, legally undeniable evidence. Who can possibly contest that? In fact, what surprised me the most about producing it was I put those clips together, which were sections of the THC show, and then when Mackenzie filmed you being raided by the VPD, there were 3 people who gave the exact some version of that testimonial right then. Like, you could film this at any point in time and it would be as true. And I take so much care to keep my hand off things. So I'm not trying to overly dramatize this. I'm not trying to sex this up. I'm keeping this as verte as possible so people know this is the truth. This is as truthful as can be, and it absolutely is. Yeah. So yeah, it's undeniable to me.
Yeah, we are trying to tell the truth. That's what it's all about. We're trying.
Truth, hope, and change.
You know,
active demonstration of change, and if that doesn't give you hope, well, I don't know what to tell you.
You know, we're trying to be the change that we need to see.
Yeah.
It's been part of the spirit of Van Du for a long time. That and it should be the spirit of everybody. There's somebody in distress.
You know, people are free to live their lives,
and you got to help that person.
Them and you would stop them. Like, if you just want to go off and do your thing, you don't want to care about people. I'm not even saying you need to do that. But the idea that someone would be helping someone and someone would actively stand in their way, that's villainy.
That's a criminal offense in Canada. That's section 262B, impeding someone who's trying to save a life. And you know, you mentioned 75 testimonials of people.
More than.
More than.
I stopped counting at 75. I just said, okay, it's 75. I'm not counting anymore. Like,
right. So there's 75 people who will tell you that cannabis has saved their life. And that's the way that they phrase it. That's what they believe. That if it hadn't been for cannabis, that they would have gone. They were on that path that has led to the death of so many of their fellow people around here. So people are saying cannabis saved their life. 75 that you know, plus more.
Far more.
250 in our program. We have doctors with letters stating on their letterhead that these people will be put at risk of death without our program, that they've come to rely on what we're doing. And we have a government that is impeding our progress in doing that.
Some levels of government, because there are city councilors who are supportive of it.
True.
So it's only certain people in certain offices who just haven't gotten with the program, right?
Some people in government are impeding our ability to do this.
They are. They definitely are.
So at some point it becomes actionable, I believe, that you know, we'll take them to court either in a constitutional challenge.
And what bothers me about that is, like, I don't even want that. Like, I just want the program to be able to run. Like, what a waste of time to have to chase down this weasel who's standing in the way of someone being helped. Like, what a waste. Think about where those resources could have been.
Like, they'd rather pump money into injection sites and free needles and things like that. They want to keep the addiction going.
Well, I want people to have access to injection sites too. Like, I'm into that as well.
But she's saying they want to keep the addiction going.
They do, 'cause, I understand harm reduction. That's fine. That's fantastic. But they're really not offering much in the terms of helping people get off if they want to. It's more, here, keep using, please. Here's some more needles. Here's a new place to get high. Like,
or something that doesn't quite help you all the way.
More people that can give you those opioids.
You know,
right?
like,
This is good government.
I don't know. It's frustrating because programs like ours should be funded.
Well, they do.
If they can fund an injection site and a consumption site and all kinds of things to do with using hard drugs, why can't they fund anything to do with cannabis? I don't understand.
Well, they got to save.
Especially if it has been legalized.
Or at least get out of the way at
Yeah,
the very
exactly.
minimum.
With those injection sites, you need doctors and you need nurses there, right? With cannabis,
I
we're not
don't
going
know
to
if
need
they have
that.
doctors.
Although
They
I'd
might
prefer, I'd love to
nurse.
have doctors and nurse practitioners and other things. But
Yeah,
yeah, it's
but-
even safer. That's the
I
thing.
don't
It's
Yeah,
think
but
they
that's
normally
easy.
do
I
have
think having doctors
on
there would
site,
like give it presented as being dangerous. That we need a doctor and a nurse there.
Why don't they just
Where
have
we've been telling
nurses?
everybody with cannabis, you're not going to get hurt. You're just going to green out, right?
Yeah, I mean,
So if we
I would
did
want to
that-
give these people as much help as possible. Like anyone who wants to sign up, it's nurses, doctors, whatever.
No, I'm just saying the cannabis
Yeah, yeah.
place. You were saying
Yeah.
injection sites have to have
Well, that's
nurses.
Oh, they
and
have
doctors.
to. Yeah, you
Yes.
could do it without that,
Yes.
and that's what's so
That's
amazing about
that's
it.
about them being so hypocritical. Like you'll hear the fucking radio ads where they're like talking about stop an overdose and whatever, but it's like,
Yep.
well, let us use cannabis then
Yeah.
for fuck's sakes. Let
Yeah.
us give out cannabis.
No, because cannabis
Like,
is not
Look how
controlled by
much the city,
pharmaceutical
the
companies,
city would
right?
benefit from everybody being on cannabis. The city would benefit big time,
Yeah.
right?
Or at least
Yeah,
everybody
well,
who
it's
needs
It's
it.
frustrating.
Yeah, if
And
you're
I
on
think 'cause
disability, you should get it
keep-
supplied to you.
They keep saying, "Oh, there's not enough proof." Yes, there is.
There's
They
tons
don't
of-
wanna
There is
acknowledge it.
the
They don't
idea that
wanna-
there's not
Yeah.
enough proof is
There's plenty
such an
enough.
absolute
They
complete
just came down here and
lie.
talked to our
Yeah.
members and
Not
got
even
testimonials.
excluding
right in
this
their
program. This
faces.
program has been running for 4
There's
years.
no denying it.
Sorry to, I just get so worked up over it. But
Me too,
if you
man.
do a PubMed search of
Okay.
cannabis and cannabinoids, you will get over 30,000 results.
Yeah.
Wow.
Like the idea that there's somehow not enough research, like if
There's so much research.
it's been grown
My
in this
God.
country since 1606 and used over
If-
400 years. Like someone's
year there's more
ignorance
studies
is
done.
not the
Every
same thing
fucking
as a
year.
lack of information.
Well, and that statement
It's never
might
enough.
be ignorance, but it's probably corruption. I don't know, but
yet
it's
they
100% dereliction of their duty.
certainly
It
is
is
a
their
mix of all
they are
things.
being paid to understand whether or not it is, and it's
Well,
easy
they
to find
have
out that it
proof
is.
That alcohol is harmful, but they have no problem selling that.
Well,
They
and
have
we're
proof
talking
that
about proof
tobacco is
that
harmful, but they have no problem selling that.
Tobacco,
Yeah.
yeah.
Well, it's not
That's
even
true.
tobacco, though. I don't consider commercial tobacco to be tobacco.
Tobacco,
Those
not
are
anymore.
cigarettes.
Well, but
I
you know
wish
what I mean.
could get tobacco
They
the
have
way
no
I can
problem
get
selling
cannabis
any of
here.
that crap. They have no problem selling as poison.
Yeah.
Stand
Right.
over on the
But
corner.
Easy to
Sell
get
something.
that.
Medicine.
Of course, because
Yeah.
if they can get you to die before you have to pay you for retirement, all the money that you put in your CPP
Or,
is now
and like,
theirs.
well, even their weed that you can buy is as far as we've always heard, covered in pesticides and all kinds of ridiculous chemicals and all kinds of gross crap.
Yeah.
So it's not even medicine.
No,
No, it
I want to
isn't.
stand
Well,
up
and as we
on
found,
my sword.
as I found out just recently, and I've alluded to earlier in the show, there's a fair bit of mold in the LP weed that they're not acknowledging. They're not compelled by Health Canada to take it back, and in many cases,
They
most
don't give a
cases,
shit.
they're not taking it back. They're telling the retailers to go ahead and sell it.
Well, that's why they'll
So-
never understand what
we
the
understand.
cannabis community is actually about, which is people over profits.
And then
They are more about profits over people.
And that's why people are
And they
eating more
don't give a
edibles.
shit if their product makes you sick.
It doesn't matter.
If it, they
Yeah.
don't care if it
And
poisons
there's some
you.
people say, well, I got
They
I
made
gotta
money
go
on
back to
it
the
and they're
edibles.
happy. That's all they're about.
You
So
go back to the edibles because you can't smoke the weed because it's got mold in it. I don't want, they say
that's
they
why.
can't.
That's why I try to explain to people we don't want the license that they're offering. That means selling the government weed. We don't want that.
No, we need a license that
We want
allows
an
us to do what we're
exemption
doing
that
the way
allows
we're
us
doing it.
to do what we're doing.
Yeah.
Because we don't want to have to sell their crap.
No, and we want to sell.
Then we just wouldn't do it. I don't want what they're offering.
Well, because if the crap's got mold in it, people aren't going to buy it. They're going to go buy it. They're going to get the edibles.
Fuck no.
Not even the edibles.
Well,
The
I wouldn't be
edibles-
willing to sell that to our fucking people.
I wouldn't
we have
sell
people
that.
that have all kinds of health problems already.
I feel ashamed to
I
sell
would-
that.
like,
I wouldn't sell that.
No.
I'd be telling them.
And that's maybe why they tell the government people that work in those stores not to tell anybody about the medical benefits of their weed. Because
There is no medical benefits to
exactly,
their
yeah, exactly, right? Because when you went into a compassion store before the government stores, people would tell you this will help
Well,
you
and
with
I've heard
sleep,
lots of times
this will
too
help
that
you
their
with
stuff has
pain,
been
this will help you
mislabeled.
with energy,
I
right?
don't know how many times their stuff has been mislabeled too.
Yes,
Like somebody
yeah.
thought they were buying CBD products and it was actually THC, so
Yeah.
they got fucking high
Yeah.
when they weren't expecting to get
And
high.
you're paying for the container instead than the weed. The weed's
Oh,
cost,
yeah.
but you're paying
fucking
for
70 milligram container for
container
1
for
milligram.
1 gram.
So as you can see, our show has devolved into let's bash the LPs.
And the government.
It's hard not to. I'm sorry.
And we
Like,
we have those feelings about those
honesty is
people
the best policy, is it not?
because it's not their fault. ultimately it's the government's fault.
Except for the ones that lobbied for that.
Well, I was gonna get to that.
If you want to watch the C45 hearings, they are on Pot TV, and there were people saying absurd things.
Oh, I know.
But sorry.
Exactly. It's a system that's been set up that is at fault, but there's definitely some of the players involved that are on board with trying to wipe out anything but them and to monopolize sales and that. And there should be nothing but advocating for zero penalties for pot. You're just growing plants, can't be a crime, not a crime. No role of government in telling a human being how many plants they can grow in their home, in their yard. There's no reason for telling people you need to restrict how many we're growing. We need more cannabis in the world, not less. There's not a problem with too much cannabis. The price is too high. Let's have everybody grow really good cannabis and get the price down low. I mean, this is all just upside down, backwards, inside out, all driven by corruption and greed. And the reason that we're upset about it here is because we're directly affected by this, because even the police told us in a telephone call, I was told that the reason that they're going to enforce Canada's laws against us doing what we're doing here is because we're threatening the profits of the government stores that are operating. I had a police officer tell me that. And we know that's the case. That if it wasn't for that, if it wasn't for protecting money interests, our public servants would very quickly come and assess what we're doing, realistically look into the truth about whether or not it works or not, and we would have had a license like 5.5 months ago, because we're just over 5.5 months into applying for it. It would have been within a couple of weeks. It probably would have been within a couple of days. They would have gone, oh, you guys are doing this much good in the community. You provided all this great evidence. You know, they'd stay up for one night to look at the application that we put in, including the video that Neil was alluding to, which the government has, which nobody could watch without coming to tears and deciding that they want to help us and that we're doing the right thing. So all of this is a sign of just how corrupt and bad it is, and it's that system that they've put in place that they're trying to protect. And because they're so worried about the money that the investors might lose, or the people involved might lose, that they are willing to let us hang for 5.5 plus months with, as far as they're concerned, we're not even doing what we're doing. That we tell them all the time, we're still out in an RV doing this. We need to be rescued from the RV and brought back into the safe space, which was our store. We tell them that, but they don't care. They would like us to go away. The last thing they want to do is actually give us permission, and all of it is to protect money interests, nothing to do with protecting people, individual Canadians that are vulnerable and in harm's way and at risk of death. And our public servants are ignoring those reasons for doing things and only staying focused on the fact that they owe favors, or they're being paid, or they're afraid of their own demise if they don't. But somehow they've obviously made promises to the big boys that they won't allow this to happen, because there's no reason on God's green earth why this can't happen. And what this is good people addressing a serious problem and coming together. It's not hard to produce cannabis. It's not hard to get cannabis at prices that make it reasonable for people to be able to afford with their daily users, trying to get off of opioids, medical users. It's not hard to do that. There's no reason why the government wouldn't let us do that. We just want to do it. We're not even asking them for help. Just let us do it. Why wouldn't you let us do it? We can do it. We're not losing money. We're just bringing product to market to people that want it at ways that make sense for everybody. Why wouldn't we be able to do it? But
I have no idea.
this is our saga. This is our journey. This is the battle that we're in. It's very unfortunate that we have to be in this battle. It's very unfortunate that our world has gone to such a state that good people sit idly by and let corrupt forces monopolize their lives and exploit them in bad ways that are resulting in people having their lives ruined and lives lost. But this is the situation that we're in, and we do have a way to stop it. We do have a mechanism for change. We do have some hope that we can solve this issue, and so that's what we're doing, and that's what the show's about, and that's what we just talked to you about. We're on a quest for a low barrier access community cannabis store licensed by public servants that will allow for people to get reasonable access. And we'll update you again next week on where we are in that journey. Maybe tomorrow will be the day that we get our license to be able to do we are doing in even better ways. And if not, and if it's not the day after or the day after, and we end up back at next Tuesday, well, I'll be back here updating you and telling you that we're still waiting, and that the costs are still mounting, and that the corruption is still becoming even more evident, and more people are dying every day.
5 a day in the province?
5.3.
In this province, yeah.
5.3, they said.
And we've rescued about 250. We have capacity to rescue far more than that, especially with support from government, and even without that, if they would get out of our way and just allow us the permission we need, then we could get more support as well, and we could rescue a lot more people. And this project is being taken over and put forward in other provinces across Canada and other places, and it needs to be everywhere. There needs to be a way for people that are struggling with addiction to access high-dose cannabis edibles reasonably and affordably, without fear of prosecution, without stigmatization, easy for me to say, must be getting to the end of the show, without stigmatization, and that's our little quest. So thanks to Pot TV for allowing me this platform, and there's other shows on Pot TV that you can watch as well, and you should be keeping up with all of those. On Monday it's Carly Marley and BC Bud Gal with the 420 Lifestyle Show. Very entertaining and informative show. We're still open on the Wednesday slot. We're still mourning the loss of our dear friend Greg Williams, and not sure how to handle that. I'm not sure when I'm going to come to the realization that he's actually gone. I still think that I can call him, and I can't. But on Thursday,
It's Lucky Diamonds.
on Thursday, BC Bud Gal will wake and bake you around 10 a.m. on the Morning Glory show. On Fridays, Johnny B has How's It Growing? I don't know how it's growing with Johnny by now. He's probably growing 3 crops. But he'll help you figure out how to grow your own plants, and we all recommend that everybody grow as many plants as they can. The job of overgrowing the corrupt forces in this world is still a very necessary thing that we all need to do. So if you can grow. And I don't think there's anything else going on Saturday these days.
It's been a bit, but the slot is open for high noon, but it's been a bit of a break. Bossless has been very busy. She's the boss. So.
She's the boss. When you're the boss, you got lots to do. But we look forward to more from her in the future. And so there's a few days there to go back and catch episodes that you missed, and to contemplate how it is that you can help us, because everybody needs to do something, and if everybody did something, then we'd have a much better world than this. And it doesn't take too much to make a phone call, or to write a letter, or to send an email, or to call an open line show, or to alert the media, call the local police station. There's so much that people can do. I mean, these are the ones that come to my mind, but I know that lots of other people have other great ideas, putting up signs in their yards and other things. But we all need to do something about the state of affairs of this world, because we are at a tipping point in the not too distant future where there'll be no coming back from the oppression of the powers that be, that would really like to lock us down and to keep us subservient to them, free to obey whatever rules their politician puppets enact for us. This can't continue too much longer before we'll be no turning back from it. And for future generations, freedom is one of the most important things in life. It's as important and valuable as air and water and love and food. So the quest for freedom continues, and we all need to do our part, and to take it seriously, to get energized about it, to have some fun doing it, and to recognize that we're just crew on this amazing ship of ours, this living planet Earth, and that it's our job to act as crew and to leave it better than we found it and not make it worse. And this is one area where maybe you can do something and be inspired to do that. But whatever you do as you go through your life, stay as safe as you can, stay as sane as you can, and always have as much fun as you can.